class, monopolies exist because of barriers to entry. If a monopolist is making a profit under perfect competition, as we saw, if there's profit, then firms are going to want to enter the market, and yet a monopolist continues to exist by itself. There must be some reason that there's no entry. And there are various different reasons that might exist. They could be legal. There could be that this monopolist just has a superior technology. But one of the reasons that there might be a monopoly is what we call a natural monopoly. Natural monopoly exists if the average total cost declines for the entire quantity of the market. So you can think about a demand curve that looks like this, and for let's assume that it's something that has very high fixed costs. Certainly the electric utility industry is an example where this often occurs. It's very high fixed costs and maybe very low marginal costs. So you could have marginal cost that is constant and very low, and then you have very high fixed costs, so your average total cost is going to be very high at the beginning, and it may just continue to fall and continue to fall, and it's falling through the entire span of the market. And this curve here is the average total cost curve, and the average total cost curve is falling through the entire span of the market, and so this would be considered a natural monopoly because the firm and any new entry into this market is going to face this very high fixed cost, and this firm can always undercut that other firm's price. Just by increasing quantity and lowering the price, the firm can basically drive any competition out of business. And the competition knows that would happen, and so they don't even try to enter to begin with. So now let's add a marginal revenue curve. And so we would see that this firm would maximize its profit if it was a single price monopolist. At this point, price off the demand curve, and then go down to average total cost, and then this would be the firm's profit. So this would be the profit if it was a single price monopolist. Now, I mentioned electric utility industry for a reason. This is a very common form of natural monopoly, and it is usually the subject of government regulation. And so the government has to figure out what price ceiling to set. Usually the government will regulate electric utilities by setting a maximum price. And of course, if the government wanted to set the efficient price, the price where there are no unused mutually beneficial transactions, it would set the price down here at average total cost, at marginal cost. And so if the price were set at, marginal cost, this would be the quantity, the competitive quantity. This would be the competitive price. But the problem, of course, is that we're below average total cost, and so this firm would lose money. And the monopolist would eventually decide to just get out of the business and go out of business. And the government's desire in regulating monopoly isn't to drive the company out of business. Obviously, if we're talking about electricity, it's something we want people to have. So what the government is actually going to try to do is find a point here where the basically set the price here where the price equals the average total cost. So this would be the price regulated, and then this would be the quantity regulated. And so the firm would produce this quantity, charge this price under the regulation. This would be the price ceiling, and the firm would then have zero economic profit, which would be what we would consider to be sort of the fair outcome. Although, as I said, it isn't really the sort of most efficient point from an economic perspective, efficiency, because out here there's still some benefits from trade that could occur. It would cost less than people are willing to pay for this additional amount of electricity, but this is the outcome that generally is considered the fair and best result from regulating a monopoly. And then one final topic I just want to briefly discuss with regard to monopoly is the question of price discrimination. So price discrimination is based on the idea that different people have different willingness to pay for any particular item. And so if you think about this, we've been discussing this for quite some time. You know, demand curve slopes down, which suggests that at this quantity, somebody's willing to pay this amount, and then if the quantity were to decrease, or excuse me, if the price were to fall, the quantity demanded would increase more. Let's say price 1, price 2. The price were to fall from price 1 to price 2, the quantity demanded would increase, which says that there's some people in here that are willing to pay this lower price that were not willing to pay this higher price. But if the price is down here, it also implies that if you raise the price, there are some people that may be willing to pay more. So the monopolist, assuming the marginal cost is, say, somewhere down here, the monopolist would love to charge these people this amount and get all of their revenue, and then charge the people that are willing to pay less this amount because they can benefit from both, but would love to be able to discriminate between the different willingnesses to pay. And one example that we've discussed and that's discussed in the book is the issue of the airlines. Airlines are able to discriminate between business travelers and vacation travelers and charge different prices for different customers. And the way they do it is they set up these mechanisms where you have to stay over on a Saturday to get the lower rate, or you have to book in advance. Business travelers usually are booking right before their flight, and they like to get home for the weekend. And so these features of the airline fare structure are really trying to discriminate and basically make sure that the high demanders are paying the higher price. Now remember, consumer surplus is the difference between your willingness to pay and the price. So if the monopolists actually charged the lower price for everybody, the consumer surplus for these high demanders would be quite high. Individual. Now we usually think of, we've graphically described the consumer surplus as the area of a triangle, but remember the consumer surplus could also be thought of as individual by individual. Let's say 20 people, 10 willing to pay $5, and 10 willing to pay $2, and let's say the price of the item was $1. Well, we can think about the total consumer surplus here. It would be this person, each of these 10 people has a consumer surplus of $4 each, so it would be 4 plus 4 plus 4 plus 4 plus 4 plus 4 plus 4, so it would be $40. And then we have 10 people willing to pay $2, so their consumer surplus would be $1, so 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, so this would be, the total consumer surplus here would be $50. But of course, a price discriminating monopolist would love to charge these 10 people $5 and these 10 people $2, in which case the consumer surplus would go to 0. If everybody was charged $2, then these people would have a 0 consumer surplus, and these people would have a $3 consumer surplus each, so we'd have a total consumer surplus of $30. Well, that's all I'm going to have to say about monopoly for now, and I'll see you in class on Tuesday.